David with EV World News. We talk about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. And I'm back today with Bobby Primus, who is the CEO of Oasis Amps, and he's subbing in for Bill, who's on vacation in Seattle today. How you doing, Bobby?
I'm excellent. I would rather be with Bill, but I'll do this.
Yes. Well,
I want to
I
be
do
on vacation.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you coming on and being my
Anytime.
co-host. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's kind of weird. I don't mind doing the show by myself, but it really is much more interesting having the back and forth banter rather than just telling people what's going on, right? So,
Absolutely.
you
I
know,
agree.
I like that a whole lot more. Anyways, let's start out. I want to talk about Mercedes-Benz. So Mercedes just had a test drive from Stuttgart to Malmo, Sweden. Okay. They drove 749 miles. We still had
Mm.
85 miles of range on a Mercedes Benz. They call it a mule because it's not a released car yet, but it is running on a solid state battery with about 850 miles of range.
Wow. Without it
Yeah,
being a hybrid,
not a hybrid. It's just a
straight
straight
EV.
solid state battery.
Wow.
And it looks like they included a picture. It looks kind of like a C-Class. Let's see
Hmm.
here. This
Looks
is
like a
what
teardrop, probably.
it's nothing magical. It's nothing magical
Yeah.
here on this car. This just looks like a regular C-Class small four-door
Hmm.
Mercedes.
I wonder if that's the battery they were working on with QuantumScape,
More technical
a solid
differences.
state
Got it.
battery. Testing. Yeah, I was wondering if that was the. I
I
know
can
they
hear.
had been working with.
No. Give me a second.
Okay. Yeah, Mercedes-Benz have been working on a battery with QuantumScape. Um, I don't know if this is what they were. It's a solid state battery, no liquid electrolytes, and it's supposed to be awesome. I'm not sure if they're still in there. I know Volkswagen was in it. I thought Mercedes at one time was in it. Um, and it's supposed to be revolutionary. But you hear about new batteries all the time, but to actually see it driven, that'll certainly be. And I know the phrase is used way too much, a game changer, because nobody will have to. I mean, you would only charge that vehicle once a week in normal use, everyday use, and you could charge that on a Saturday or a Sunday while you do grocery shopping, um, and still be able to keep that thing running. So, and imagine
I
how.
Go ahead, Bobby. Go ahead.
No, I was thinking that talking about powering your home with that kind of battery, you can go a solid week powering your home with that. And in case of Milton, like last year, came through Florida, to power your house with your EV battery would be awesome.
Oh yeah, that's a lot of power, and we're going to talk some about virtual power plants and V2G today as
Mhm.
well. But yeah, that would be pretty amazing. Now, this was a Mercedes EQS Saloon Mule, is what they addressed the vehicle as. But it went 1,205 kilometers without recharging, with 137 kilometers left, and that all works out to almost 850 miles.
That is phenomenal. The
This
world
wasn't
has changed.
Yeah, this wasn't done on a purpose-built track. This was actually driven from Stuttgart to Malmo, Sweden on real roads, so it has real life relevance.
And so
Um,
they weren't hyper driving it or driving it at slow speeds like they did the Ford F-150. This was normal every day. That is phenomenal.
yeah, this
That
was
that
just
is the
normal
game
driving.
changer. Yeah,
Yep.
that is the game
Um,
changer.
yeah, and I learned something from this too. No ferries were used. Okay, so they actually, I didn't realize that everything had bridges when you were
Yeah.
crossing, the straits from like Denmark to Norway and Sweden. I
Yeah.
didn't realize um, they had completely had bridges there, but it's really crazy what's going on with solid state. Now, what they don't tell you is what do solid state batteries cost at this point?
Yeah.
Okay,
That new
so
technology is going to be expensive.
Right. So, the thing is, your lithium ion batteries for cars and for battery packs have come down 90% in the last 10 years.
Yes,
Okay.
it's
And
been
they keep
phenomenal.
almost cutting in half about every other year. Okay. And so I would suspect the solid state batteries are in the price range probably where things were 10 years ago, right? I
Hmm.
expect them to just be astronomical, but they're expecting to actually have this in vehicles as a regular thing by 2030. Well, in 5 years, I'm sure that cost of production is going to go way down. And one of the
And
things too,
depending on what they're using it, I've seen new aluminum ion batteries, new
mhm.
salt based batteries. So if the primary ingredient or material is less, maybe it won't be as extravagantly expensive as lithium,
Well,
perhaps.
like you mentioned the sodium ion batteries. So the sodium ion batteries can't catch on fire, but
Right.
they aren't as energy dense as an LFP battery.
I see.
So you actually are going to have a larger battery with the sodium ion batteries. The advantage, once again, is they're cheap to make,
Cheap to
and
make.
they get rid of the fire issue. So China has mandated all these things about how they have to eliminate all of the fire challenges with EV batteries by 2030.
Awesome.
So you're seeing a
So
lot of
so the
research in that
same
space
size
there.
battery would it weigh the same, or would it be heavier? Would the salt battery have to be heavier because of the lack of energy density?
It would be heavier.
It would be heavier.
I don't know that it's significantly heavier.
Yeah.
Okay, but still, if it was 50% heavier, that would still add a fair amount of weight.
A
But
lot of weight to an
on the
already
flip
heavy
side,
vehicle.
on the flip side, it goes back to what are you targeting? Are you targeting? There's a lot of 100-mile EVs or less still out there, right? And
Yeah.
there's a lot of them all over the world. It's not just, we're not just talking about the United States. A lot of times we get short-sighted and only think about what we see here in the US. But, you start talking about a 200-mile vehicle. Well, if it was, you're talking there's between what a 400-mile vehicle with a lithium ion battery might weigh, and you put it in sodium, maybe that's only a 270-mile battery for the same weight. Okay, but
Yeah.
is that acceptable? Is that an acceptable range? Is it cheaper to make? Possibly. The thing is, lithium batteries just keep getting cheaper and cheaper. And a lot of that is there's more supply. Lithium's not a critical mineral. It is in a sense in that up until just recently, there wasn't really much being extracted in North America. The
Right.
main source of lithium is Australia, but the main source of refining lithium is China.
It's China.
Yeah, so you have all these different things. It's like cobalt comes from the Congo. I don't know where they refine it. Cobalt's used in all your lithium ion batteries, whether it's on your cell phone, your laptop, your car, whatever. But then the LFP batteries, I believe, don't use cobalt. So, and the sodium ion
That's
batteries
good.
won't use cobalt. So
That's awesome.
there's a lot of things where people won't be dependent on the Congo. I always love having that little argument. It's like, yeah, we can stop buying their cobalt, then all the children that are mining it can starve to death.
Yeah. Can't win for losing, I tell you.
No. I mean, it's always
losing.
kind of funny. I try to look at every side of the coin. It's like, okay, well, we can stop this from happening, but that might cause another bad result. That
But
people didn't
almost
expect.
every solution brings on new problems.
Right, that's
It
true.
just
Very
seems.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
and
I
it's
asked.
definitely. I was going to say that's definitely been true with EVs.
Yeah. I asked your engineer. I befriended him on LinkedIn, and I asked him about the dilemma of EVs versus gasoline prices, which seem to now finally be dropping. And according to the current administration, they're trying to keep pushing it down, which may make to the uneducated that gasoline vehicles would be more profitable, more return on investment, a better return on investment than an EV, because they're not thinking about the no maintenance, and you could charge it at home at cheaper rates. You know, he sent me back an awesome message. I didn't understand it at all because he went into engineering mode, and I was hoping he would discuss it with you because it went right. You know, you want to talk computers or software tech, data centers, hardware. That's me. But you want to talk numbers and engineering. That's you guys. You know. But I wanted to see what the return on investment as gas prices fall, which seem to be one of the motivators for, you know, not only going green, but to have a more affordable vehicle.
Mhm.
You know,
You know, I sometimes with people like Mike's used to talking to other really smart people who are really good with science and
yeah,
numbers and stuff like that. And it's funny because when it's like the old Dilbert um, cartoons, you know, like when an engineer talks to other people, it's like they're confused because it seems like the engineers maybe aren't human, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
the other people, and they don't understand normal people, and normal people don't understand what the engineers are saying, and the engineers can't understand why normal people are so dumb.
yeah.
And it does get to be interesting. I really like having Mike around because he can answer some difficult
He can filter
questions.
through that stuff. Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
when I
So.
was at Microsoft, they would give us the white paper for the new operating system, and we were supposed to study it. And then we get in a room and start discussing it to, you know, see what they want to do. And it's just like you said, all these techs talking back and forth to each other, and somebody walk past the room thinking we're crazy, you know, because they
Mhm.
just don't understand the lingo and the thought process. It's just alien to them. So that's why people have their niches. You know, they go in there and they can do their thing with other people, and they build off each other instead of somebody like me holding them back out of my field.
Well, you know, it's interesting because when I start looking at some of the technology in the EV space, there's things like we're going to talk about virtual power plants and vehicle to grid a little bit later on the show. But to the average person, they have no idea what those terms mean. They know what a power plant
Mhm.
is, but what's a virtual power plant? And
Somewhere,
it
yeah.
and it doesn't make any sense. And then when you
Sense to
start
them.
getting into it, and people always talk about how the grid can't handle EVs. Well, maybe it's the other way around. Maybe the grid isn't equipped for the future without EVs.
Yeah.
And so, because there's things coming up now, the cars. I was talking about this one day. The Teslas, their warranty doesn't cover them being used for V2G on their batteries.
Really? None of them? I thought
Uh,
one was.
It might be the Cybertruck might be okay.
I think so. I think
Okay,
maybe. I might
um,
be incorrect.
but what I'm getting at is the older vehicles aren't set for it because they were worried about, you know, making sure the battery lasted enough
Last
cycles
one.
or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's really an issue, right?
Mhm.
But it's interesting that with them having been the leader in EV technologies for the past 10 years, you know, you would have thought they would have been in the forefront of this, right? And
Absolutely.
and they haven't. Um, but in most of the V2G or vehicle to grid scenarios that I've seen played out, they've used really obscure vehicles like Mini Coopers that have 100-mile batteries.
Yeah.
And it's like, that seems like an odd car to pick because the battery's so small, but it may have been that it was one that didn't argue about the warranty situation with the battery.
Yeah.
And so you see a fair amount of that. But anyways, I'm going to move on from the Mercedes topic. And so in the so are you familiar with Xiaomi? Xiaomi is a big cell phone maker in China.
They make everything now, don't they? Cars
Well,
and
they've got two incredibly well-selling EVs, the
mhm.
SU7, and there's another one that's something 7 that's now a
Yeah.
an SUV. Or
Mhm.
I can't remember the numbers on the two cars. Well, Hawaii is another Chinese company that sort of got banned from the United States because it was discovered they were basically snooping on a lot of things here in the U.S.
Oh
kind of
boy.
thing. And so they sort of got blacklisted, and you don't see their brand of cell phones in the United States anymore, and some other stuff. But you know, the biggest EV market in the world is China, right?
Of
Hawaii
course.
opens, and Hawaii spelled Huawei, so it's not like
I
the
thought it
state
was
of Hawaii.
Huawei, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, well, maybe it is Huawei. I don't know.
I don't know.
Um,
I don't speak
anyways,
Mandarin.
they opened the world's first 100 megawatt charging station. They could charge a Tesla in 2 minutes. It says is the
Wow.
headline. Now that's not true. Okay, I can already
Because you
tell
have
you.
to, yeah,
I already
you're
know the
not pulling that
science.
off the grid.
That isn't really happening. Theoretically, that could happen, right? But in reality, it
Yeah.
cannot. Okay, and I'll get into that a little bit as we go along.
Okay.
So, the tech giant has made Tesla charging facilities look slow and sloppy by comparison. In the Sichuan province, the station is designed specifically for electric heavy-duty trucks and services up to 700 vehicles a day.
Wow.
Okay. This is beyond an innovation. It's a revolution in the world of EVs. When I tell people about what's going on in the charging world in China compared to what's going on in the United States, we look like, we have no, it's as, I see people talk about the differences between like American aircraft, like the F-35,
yeah,
and how all these other countries try to produce things that look kind of similar, but they're clearly not even in the same ballpark. Well, China's that way in charging technology compared to the United States. Okay. And it's really hard for Americans to wrap their head around that the Chinese are better at anything
than us.
States. Okay.
And it really was started here. It's just we're being left behind in technology.
It is crazy. So this particular station is on 11 and a half acres. It's a $21 million investment in electric technology. 21 million just sounds like a big gas station.
Yeah.
Okay. If you were putting in a, Flying J or one of those gas stations, I bet they probably cost $21 million to put in, as big as those truck stops are. But it's 18 ultra high capacity chargers are spread out, 18 of them, each one capable of 1.44 megawatts each. That's a lot of power draw. There are another 108 bays, which each offer 600 kilowatts of power. Now, here's why I was saying
all this power.
We'll get into that in a minute. I'm curious if they have something, because this is something, I'm in the nuclear space. This is something that would obviously be a great location that we'd want to put nuclear reactors at, right? Because it's going to use the power. Now, in my opinion, straight charging like this isn't going to win the charging wars. In China, NIO and CATL are already doing battery swap technology.
Yes.
I think battery swap is superior for commercial, bigger than a pickup truck vehicles. Okay. For anything bigger than a pickup truck, all the large delivery trucks, 18-wheelers, battery swap makes way more sense. For cars, now there's NIO has 3,000 car battery swap stations around China currently. 3,000. I mean, it's staggering to think about how many that is, and to think the United States has 0. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think that battery swaps for cars are the future. Okay. I think this
because the
high-speed
technology
charging
is increasing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I think the tech for the cars with the charging is going to keep going the way it's going. And it's just going to keep getting better and better. But I think, but when you've got say a Tesla semi that's got 500 kilowatt hours of battery on it, I see the idea of slapping in a battery on each side. Let's say it's a 250 and a 250 on each side. It pulls into the drive-through that's removing it, removes those, puts 2 more on there that gives it the next, battery size that gets it another 500 miles of range or whatever, and it just takes off. It's not sitting there.
Yeah,
because
not sitting there at all.
With even with 1.44 megawatts, if you're trying to put in 300 megawatts, I mean that's still over 200 minutes, right? So you're talking about sitting there for 3.5 hours. Now, if you had one on each side, you cut that in half, right? But you're still talking an hour and a half.
To me, of downtime.
That's not good. Now, a truck driver still has to stop, right?
Yeah.
But
by law,
you don't want a line of like 20 trucks waiting to be the next truck to
Yeah.
charge, right? Whereas with the battery swap, you could be in, you could be out, in, out,
Yeah.
in, out. And the batteries then, when we get to vehicle to grid, to be a massive amount of power to stabilize the local grid.
Yes. When it's
Okay,
not,
but
it's sitting
when
there.
it's not active. Yeah.
When it's not active.
So Tesla's latest supercharger tops out at 350 kilowatts, which is 1/4 of Hawaii's most powerful offering, and it's about half of what their other one that they've said they've got 108 bays. Now,
Wow.
yeah, so there's the Tesla cars probably aren't going to be taking that 1.44 megawatts. You think
Right.
about that. That would, definitely put a lot of juice in there. There are some fast chargers, and I've talked to the CEO of Gravity, and we talked a little bit about, he's going to come on the show at some point, but they're the ones making these really fast chargers that'll add about 40 minutes of range every minute in New York City. But you have to have the right vehicle. I think this of the Teslas, the only one that's equipped is the Cybertruck, but there's some Hyundais, some Porsches, some other vehicles that are all equipped for this ultra fast charging. But it only, right now in the US, it only exists in New York City.
See, that's like you said, that would make battery swapping take longer than charging at a regular charger at that level. And to me, having a major component of my car constantly removed and put back in, I read one, this was probably a year and a half ago. The vehicle came out of a swap station and the battery dropped on the ground. It wasn't completely seated in the vehicle. It dropped. It may not have been real, but it's like, why would you want that big component constantly every week coming and going out of your vehicle? It just seems like it's for networking, you want as few connection points as possible because those are going to be your failure points, so that's a text thinking.
No, that makes a lot of sense. But that's why I'm saying I think that it makes sense with the big commercial vehicles.
Yeah,
it doesn't make as much sense to me with the cars.
And
I'll probably be completely wrong. It'll probably go exactly the opposite way. Battery swap will become the thing with cars, and the trucks will sit there for 3 hours. But we had the other guy that was going to come on, and we're trying to reschedule. That we were talking about the wireless charging. But that wireless charging still goes back to, it better damn sure be a car, because that, they've tried that wireless charging like with buses, and it's like the bus, just doesn't sit long enough. That's a lot of walking around. And then you think about it, what if you walked over that space when it was raining?
Yeah.
I guess it detects when the car's there to send juice.
Send power to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I was thinking
don't step out of the car.
A quick connect that would be one part on the vehicle, and they would swing up and grab each other like a shoe and hoof that would allow that connection and communication to say, okay, let's charge this thing. And then you would probably in the ground have something to come up to safeguard the perimeter of that while it's doing that, to allow, you don't want to radiate nobody or no cats or dogs walking under your vehicle while you're sitting, I would think. I don't know.
A couple of days ago, I saw two KC-135 tankers flying close to each other. And I think what they were doing was they were taking turns refueling each other. So one would refuel one, and then the other one would fly ahead, and then they'd refuel the other. And they were kind of like doing touch and goes, but they were practicing refueling the other aircraft. And they just keep flying and flying and flying. I thought that was kind of interesting to see them flying the way they were flying, because normally you see commercial aircraft, they're way apart. Even military aircraft are usually because of aviation rules, but these were like doing that. I was like,
that's very nice. That's a bomb.
Yeah. But anyways, but I assume what you're talking about would be very similar, where the aircraft refueling tech connects to the other aircraft, and they pump fuel while they're flying. It's a very
Because wirelessly, how would they communicate? Because when you plug in your cable in the vehicle, it communicates with the vehicle,
right.
Because the charger has to know what size battery and how much power it can accept, right? So there's some communication. How would you do that wirelessly? You can have a
Oh,
receiver on both
I
ends.
guess it's just Bluetooth, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's just a different different technology. Anyways, but I found that interesting that the Chinese have that going on. So let's see. I wanted to get on another topic. So Tesla, we already knew earlier this year it had dropped the number 2 EV seller in the world behind BYD. Now that's happened before. So and then Tesla came back and BYD. But now Geely, which is another Chinese company that also owns Volvo and some other brands, it owns Polestar.
Polestar,
I can't remember all the others, but it jumped ahead of Tesla. So BYD's number 1, Geely's number 2, Tesla's number 3. Hyundai Motor Group currently ranks number 7. Let's see if it gives any more information. Tesla ranked 3rd with sales declining by 13% to only 829,000 units for the quarter. Geely sold a little over 1.1 million units. BYD sold, 2.2 million units.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
in a month or in a quarter?
In a quarter.
In a quarter. Wow, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I thought that Tesla wasn't being influenced like his bad publicity in this country and really all the other places other than China. I thought they didn't care about, his politics. They weren't affecting his numbers.
I think some of it being an American car may have some of it too. And the other thing is it's mainly the sales of the Model Y and the Model 3 decreased. It had poor performance across Europe, North America, and China. Now, what's interesting is there's a new Model Y L that is it's like a foot longer Model Y that has 3-row seats. So it's got 2 captain's chairs in the rear seat, and then it's got 2 more seats in the back.
Very nice.
Easily get through. Those are selling about 10,000. They started selling that in China about 2 weeks ago. It's only available in China, and they've been selling a little more than 10,000 a day.
Wow.
So that's really been a big increase in the past 2 weeks. But here we're talking about prior quarter.
Gotcha.
Okay. Let's see. Didn't give any stats on what was number 4, 5, and 6, but I'm going to bet they were probably Chinese brands too. So, that's just kind of the nature there. What you don't see are brands like Ford, GM, or Stellantis. And that's
I thought the Cadillac Lyric was doing pretty good over there.
It's doing really well.
I thought I read it somewhere.
Yeah, but still, it's insignificant compared to the huge volume of sales these Chinese companies are having.
I agree.
And a lot of with these Chinese companies, since half of all Chinese car sales are electric, and it's the biggest electric car market. I think it's not just that half of their cars. I think it's damn near half of the world's EVs are sold in China as well. So I mean, it's it's different to state how that market is. Let's see here. So let's talk about this MegaBlock thing. Now, while I didn't watch the video you sent, Tesla's new MegaBlock system can power 400,000 homes in under a month. This is a 1 gigawatt hour system. It's aiming to commission 1 gigawatt hour in just 20 business days. Now, it says that's enough to power 400,000 homes. That means 4,000 homes per megawatt. So I've seen varying arguments on this. I think when you are in a third world country, you can power 400,000 homes. In the United States, I don't think you can power more than about 500.
Why?
Air conditioning.
Ah,
Okay. Air conditioning
yeah,
is the big. So when you look at how energy usage has been in the United States, when air conditioning was invented, power draw needs in the United States went up astronomically.
yeah,
Okay. And I'm sure they were probably debating in Congress, how are we going to power all these air conditioners, right?
yeah.
And now we're like, how are we going to power EVs? How are we going to power AI? So there keeps being new and new solutions. But yes, the United States likes air conditioning.
So
And
how does that compare to your nuclear solution that you have?
so when I talk about nuclear, I'm usually dealing in small micro reactors that are
Microreactors.
50 megawatts down to about 15 megawatts.
I
Okay.
see.
Now, I tell people that generally, if we're not in the United States, we're going to power a minimum of 1,000 homes per
Mhm.
megawatt. But I see
Mhm.
these numbers touted. So in this, it's giving the example of 4,000 homes per megawatt. It's no different. A megawatt from nuclear versus a
Yeah,
megawatt from
same
battery
thing.
is
Yeah.
similar, other than the fact that my megawatt from the nuclear comes out every hour. The megawatt from the battery is only there, it has to be refilled from somewhere,
Yeah.
right? So
It's
it's
not
it
24-hour demand pull.
yeah, it is a way though to take solar and wind and turn it into more of a base load type solution, because
Mhm.
you load all that power. You have to have enough solar farm and wind farm that the battery is loaded to provide all the energy needed at when energy isn't pumping in there, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's the idea. um, let's see, Tesla did they call it Las Vegas, for MegaBlock event in Las Vegas. Tesla launched MegaBlock, a pre-engineered medium voltage block designed to integrate Megapack 3 units in a plug-and-play system capable of 20 megawatt hours alternating AC current with a 25-year life cycle and more than 10,000 cycles. It could achieve 91% round-trip efficiency at medium voltage, inclusive of auxiliary loads. Now, it says it can be installed 23% faster with up to 40% lower construction costs than other battery electric storage systems. It could provide 248 megawatt hours per acre. That's a lot,
Wow.
because when you're putting in
Wow.
solar, it takes 5 acres to produce 1 megawatt hour
Yeah.
of power. Okay. So you have to have a lot of acres of solar. It
For
used to be
solar.
7, now it's down to 5.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm just saying that I don't really believe that 1 gigawatt hour of this battery will really power 400,000 homes. It might have
Yeah.
done it in some other
24/7.
country, but
Yeah.
not in the United States. Now, if we were
Yeah.
talking Canada, you're probably talking a
Mhm.
different ballgame, because Canada uses more heat than they use,
Mm.
air conditioning.
Air
So in
conditioning.
Canada, you
Yeah.
might not use much air conditioning at all. So if you were somewhere, like a lot of people in Seattle don't have air conditioning, okay, because it
Mm.
never really gets that hot in Seattle. It does a couple days a year, but generally, for the most part, they don't really deal with heat. So a lot of places don't have AC.
Mhm.
So people's electric bills are probably much lower there. Okay.
Yeah.
So you could, in theory, um, maybe you could power 400,000 homes there with this. But
Yeah.
in Las Vegas, where it's hot,
No,
I don't see that
it's
happening.
not going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not trying to. I've seen this before with arguments about some nuclear facilities in China, where they
Mhm.
basically gave the same calculation that a gigawatt of nuclear was going to power 400,000 homes. And you think about it,
Mhm.
400,000 homes, let's say it's an average of 4 people per home. That's 1.6
Mhm.
million people serviced by that. Um, I just don't I
Yeah,
don't believe that
this don't
energy
add
math.
up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to criticize Tesla or whatever. I'm just saying that some of this energy math can be a little hokey. I've also,
Yeah.
I'm a real big fan of solar. Okay. But I keep seeing these articles of where people have these solar systems and they start malfunctioning after 3 years. And
Really?
these techs, I saw somebody advertising, it's like, hey, we can come and fix this for you. But said the easiest for us is to just scrap that original system and put a new system in, because it's actually hard
Yeah.
to repair. It's hard to
Yeah.
diagnose, and it's hard to just go and fix the individual thing. Now, that doesn't mean that, it's kind of like the thing with EV batteries. We know that about 1 in 200 EV batteries fails out of the warranty period before it gets to past 200,000 miles. Okay.
Right.
It's not, if they do fail, they're in the warranty period, right?
Yeah, right.
Otherwise, if you make it past the warranty period, they're going to last to
It's going to be
200,000
all
miles.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that being said, some of them still fail, right? So I don't know how common this issue with solar really is, but it happens,
Yeah.
right? So but a lot of that is like, was it faulty installs? Was it poor workmanship on the quality of the solar panels?
If they
Could it
didn't
be
talk the
that?
connections.
Could it be the
Yeah, that's
extra
crazy.
communications devices the Chinese installed in the panels is causing it to malfunction? Who knows? That's been a problem too with Chinese panels having extra communication devices that aren't on the schematics for the solar panels.
Yeah, I got a guy outside my place. He's doing the lawn mowing. So if it gets too much, let me know. I'll mute my mic.
I can't even hear it. So
yeah, I'm wearing a mic for that. So hopefully you don't hear it. But if you do, let me know. I'll mute my mic.
I think you're good. But anyways, I thought this was interesting, though, that a lot of people don't realize how much Tesla is into this battery storage stuff and tech. And it's just a big feature, but it's a very small percentage of their revenue.
But you think it's still capable of replacing coal-fired plants, right? You think?
Well, it already has. So it did it in Hawaii and it's done it in Nevada.
Yeah.
Although the one in Nevada wasn't Tesla, it was somebody else. But the last I think Nevada got rid of its last coal-fired plant. I know Hawaii did. Hawaii doesn't have coal anymore, and it's a Tesla battery farm that replaced it. But it's being powered by other renewables, solar, wind. They've done geothermal there. One of my friends who's a professor over there is really big on geothermal. The problem they keep having is geothermal. Hawaii is volcanoes, right? It's volcanic island chain. And they keep having lava screw up the geothermal plants.
Wow.
I mean,
that's an interesting problem to have.
Yeah. I mean, it's not something you have everywhere. But, even for security purposes, all of the nuclear tech I'm working on gets buried 50 feet in the ground. Okay.
Yeah,
and there's a couple reasons for that. One is to prevent aircraft or drone attack, to secure it from an aircraft, from bombing. Terrorists trying to seize the reactor because they are movable. The reactors, some of the ones like a 15 megawatt reactor will fit in a 20-foot shipping container. So so there's some things for part of the security for the facility is having them buried 50 feet underground. Okay.
So that's still covered by the NRC. Do they regulate that?
Yeah, it's an approved method for doing. There's another company out there called Deep Fission, which is doing third generation small modular reactors. Their deal is they're going to bury all of their reactors a mile underground. Well, that's not going to work in Hawaii. Okay, I'll tell you that. You're not going a mile down in Hawaii. You're in the lava there.
Yeah.
But but that's I find that to be a little bit of overkill. So the third generation reactors are still water cooled, and they're basic steam turbines. And the fourth generation are not. They're cooled maybe by helium or molten salts. There's different things that are being used in fourth generation that doesn't require water. And one of the weird things is when you use water, while the water itself might become get radiation, you don't release that. You don't like put that out in the river.
Yeah,
Next,
it's in a sealed loop.
right. But
Yeah.
in Florida, like in Key Biscayne, it's a second gen reactor there, which is obviously water cooled. The problem they get is condensation comes through the walls of the reactor. That condensation is radioactive.
Wow.
I don't understand how that works. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't understand it, but all I know is that the water there at Key Biscayne is radioactive.
Wow. That's crazy.
So that, so it's obviously coming from the nuclear plant, but it's not like they're just putting radioactive water out into the ocean.
Right. That would be illegal.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's a very, very tiny amount of radioactivity.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just saying, but it's not zero.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyways, and that's one of my things with a lot of the stuff in the nuclear space. There's a lot of ideas out there for getting rid of nuclear waste. And it's not necessarily that there's some way to destroy or a better way to get rid of it. It just gets reused. And a technology we're looking at is able to make it so the half-life of the remaining nuclear waste is about 150 years. Okay, as opposed to people think about the tens of thousands of years of current nuclear waste. Most of the nuclear waste in the United States can be recycled, and it could be, you could reduce the amount of nuclear waste by 75% by recycling it back through current, more modern reactors.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it still doesn't take it to zero.
Still got to bury it eventually.
It's still much greener than what's current, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting because it's all perspective, right? It's still it's still not perfect, but I see all this weird criticism of solar and wind. It's like, what do you do with the wind turbine fans when they're done? They can't easily be recycled, and it's like, really? That's the hill you're gonna fight? Yeah, you're gonna argue about the recyclability of the wind turbine blades. When we're pumping oil for all this stuff. And I'm not anti-oil. I've never on the show really. Now I would like to see less air pollution. And there's so many things that are manufactured with petroleum products. It's not just used for energy. There's other things that petroleum products are used for.
Yeah,
and
a lot
I
of
find
things.
and it's just a different look. So I got this company called Electron Mash. It is a Ukrainian electric transit manufacturer. Okay. They are still building electric transit in Ukraine, even in the wartime climates. It's kind of weird to think about, right? You think about a country like Ukraine to be totally on, a wartime economy. It seems like people are still trying to lead somewhat normal lives that aren't involved in the fighting, right? It's just really hard to perceive that from over here, but there's an example of an electric tram. And
that looks good.
Yeah. They're based in Lviv, Lviv, Ukraine. Now that's over towards Poland.
I was there. I've been to both Kharkiv and Lviv.
Okay.
Yeah. So where I met my last wife.
Oh, nice.
Not really, but okay.
Let's see. The company emerged from the legacy of the Lviv bus factory and has since become a cornerstone of Ukraine's electrified urban mobility center. Its full cycle manufacturing produces low floor trams, modular trolley buses, and electric buses tailored to Ukraine's infrastructure. They're not really, their market is almost entirely domestic. Everything is pretty much going to Ukrainian cities, and their financial disclosures show they had no export revenue between 2020 and 2022. Apparently, they do have a little bit. but missile threats, energy instability, and supply chain disruptions have made production difficult, yet they've adapted by deepening its localization strategy and maintaining civic commitment. I always wonder when you're doing something like manufacturing in a zone like that, are you doing the manufacturing like underground, or are
Yeah,
you actually
because it
doing
seemed
it?
like it'll be bombed.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think you'd be,
Wow.
digging deep basements and putting
Mm.
everything there. I mean,
Yeah,
uh,
that's crazy.
it's really just hard to fathom. I mean, in Germany in World War II, when the Allies started really ramping up bombing, Germany moved a lot of its manufacturing underground, and
Yeah.
they were actually able in 44 to outproduce 43, even with all the ramped up bombing, with the
Hmm.
Allies landing the coast. They actually didn't go into a full wartime economy in Germany until 44, but
Wow.
they were doing that. And so I imagine a lot of this is going on in Ukraine too. They're building
Yeah.
underground. All
Building on the
this, it's
ground.
just really hard to fathom.
You can pull this off in a war like that.
Yeah. Well, and having to live like that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just horrifying, right?
It's
Okay.
horrible. It's horrible.
So I want to talk about solar and virtual power plants in Canada.
Hmm.
Now, the term virtual power plant, this has been used a couple of times. So we reported on something in California a couple of weeks ago where they were taking, I think, like it was like 600 or 800 megawatts of people having battery packs at home, and they
Hmm.
powered some part of the grid for some period of time just to kind of test it out in California. Okay. And
Mm.
it was really huge how much it was. But so what this basically is, when they talk about the virtual power plants, this is a type of, it's not necessarily V to G because there's no vehicle involved in this, but you have the
Hmm.
battery packs in the houses along with solar
Hmm.
panels and solar farms, and you're using all of these batteries to help stable, not just to power the houses,
Separate.
but to
Hmm.
stabilize the local grid.
Like the grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things when people talk about electric vehicles, they don't quite understand is that you've got a really big battery and it can
Hmm.
power a house for several days. And
Hmm.
if you have one like we're talking about the Mercedes one, man, that might power it for 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Then you
Yeah.
unplug it, go to a supercharger, charge it back up, plug it back in. Like here, the hurricane came through. We were
Hmm.
out. They were out of gasoline, not electricity, for 9 days.
Yeah.
But if your power out was out in your house, you could go plug in your vehicle 4 or 5 days, go to a supercharger. There was power downtown. Come back and
Mhm.
plug it in. Get another. You could have went the whole duration of the problem without ever losing power.
And people don't really realize that's a thing.
Yeah.
We hear all these criticisms of EVs and green energy and all these things. And I tell people all the time, every type of energy is a tool for the utility company.
Yes.
All right. And it's really hard. LNG is a great replacement for coal, in my opinion.
Yes.
Okay.
It's
It's
cleaner
clean.
at least.
It's cleaner. It doesn't have cause the same health problems for everybody that coal causes, both for the miners and the workers. LNG is not perfect. It's still got some of
Yeah.
those problems. It's just not the same.
Problem.
Yeah, it's on a different
Right.
level, right? And it's a similar cost to produce, and it can be stored and used. Essentially, when we're talking about battery packs and solar, that's really no different.
Hmm.
LNG is basically, it's when you've got it in the tank, it's no different than a battery, right? It's ready to be used, right? The
Yep.
power the it can be burned and it can be used. It's tough to replace that. Now, when I'm dealing in nuclear, we're trying to replace things like LNG. Okay. But it's not really
Hmm.
LNG. Most of the places we're looking at are using diesel or bunker fuel, which is nowhere near as clean as LNG. Okay.
Hmm.
And so it's even a bigger savings and much cheaper to provide, mostly because of the lack of transportation cost.
Hmm.
And so there's other factors that go into that. But LNG in a place like the United States, where we have all kinds of LNG plants, is really cheap to make electricity from. But it's still not as cheap as solar, and definitely not as cheap as wind. Oh God, our current Secretary of Energy made this idiotic statement a week ago. I don't know if you saw this, where he said if you covered the entire world in solar panels, it only produced 20% of the energy the world needs.
Wow.
And there was even talk that you took some narrow section of the Sahara Desert in Africa and it was all solar panels, it would power the whole planet.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy is so far off, and yet he's the Secretary of Energy. And I don't know if he was paid to say that.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's just not.
It was such a horrible statement for somebody high up in the government to be so wrong in what they're saying that it's, I don't know. It bothers me when somebody is just absolutely spouting lies.
Well, I think that's why they're not supporting solar anymore. So, and to me, it's the easiest solution when you have homeowners willing to bear the cost of stabilizing the grid, whether or not they sell back to the grid. If they can get off the grid at high peak times, it's still helping the grid. But to go against it just seems not logical to the realities of what's going on.
No, it doesn't. And there's lots of things where people say a politician. I'm the thing is, I like it when we see good results, right, from government and things like that. But there's lots of things I hear politicians say I don't agree with. Doesn't mean that I don't respect them, but that one was really off. And it's just like Bill and I were talking about, one of our senators from here in Nebraska said that EVs weigh 3 times what gas cars do. And it's like, no, you could cherry pick. You could take a Hummer EV, which weighs 9,000 pounds and is the heaviest passenger EV, and you could probably find a 3,000 pound gas car, but that's going to be something like a Nissan Versa. I mean, those two aren't even similar vehicles. To carry what the Hummer carries, you'd have to have probably 3 of the the Versas, right? Yeah. So, I mean, it's not a really fair comparison. If you put a similar EV, it might weigh 10% more, not 300% more. So, it's just interesting to see some of that. And I don't know where people get some of that information. It would have been some of that information is easy enough to research. And the thing was, Elon Musk has talked about how you could power the whole planet with solar, but he said it was like maybe the size of Rhode Island, could be enough solar to power the whole planet. But the problem is with that is that you couldn't do that in just one place, right? Because I tell you all the time, what people misunderstand a lot of times about the cost of electricity, it's not actually the cost of the generation of the electricity. It's the having it close enough to where it's going to be used because of the transmission costs. And so coal is kind of sucks at this because coal plants are usually put in low-income neighborhoods. And so the people in those low-income neighborhoods suffer from the negative effects of the coal being in that neighborhood from the health problems.
Yeah, they don't care about that.
But that keeps the cost down because then you have the transmission cost is minimal. Whereas solar farms and wind farms are put out in the middle of nowhere. And then you got to pay to transmit the energy back. Now, I don't know what that really costs. I always use the example of like New York State, where energy is about 25 cents because the power company is a monopoly. They can only earn a 10% profit. So 2.5 cents off that 25 cents, you're at 22.5 cents, right? Now, they're probably paying the CEOs and everybody really well. Okay, power company, that's allowed because that's before they make a profit, right? So let's say that's another 2.5 cents. Okay, we're down to 20 cents. They buy the power from Quebec, which has hydroelectric, for 4 cents. So the other 16 cents is cost of infrastructure, at maintenance, and transmission. Okay, so it only cost 4 cents to Quebec because I remember as a result of some of Trump's tariffs, there was this talk that Canada was going to raise the cost of the electricity by 25% to the US, which people were saying, oh, that's going to raise everybody's electric bill $100. It's like, no, it's only going to raise it 1 cent.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Because it's going to go from 4 cents to 5 cents. The rest of the cost is the same. Right.
Yeah.
So this is one of the things, this is why I like what I'm doing with nuclear, in that while you may not want a nuclear reactor in your backyard, okay, because you have whatever preconceived notions you may have about nuclear, the truth is our target customers like manufacturing, where they're going to have the nuclear right there. If we were going to do it for a data center, the nuclear reactor would be right beside the data center. It would actually be within their secured perimeter.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's going to be right there. So we don't have the transmission costs. Right. So they're able to get it at whatever, we can provide it there so that they get a great price. And so it's a big difference in the overall cost of electricity. But going back to what Canada's doing, Canada is the world's 6th largest economy, which is pretty interesting to see. Yeah, but they're almost the population is about the size of California. They say if California was a country, it would be the world's 5th largest economy.
Yeah.
So, but let me see. Canada halved its use of natural gas in the last 2 years. They have plenty of inexpensive solar energy, it's weird to think about. Now, Canada, in the summertime, the sun stays up for like 22 hours a day sometimes, depending on where you're at. Okay. Yeah. But in the winter, it's pretty dark. So your solar, it probably isn't that effective in the winter, but they also aren't using air conditioning in the winter.
Right.
Yeah. So it's really, so it's really effective. And another country that's really been adding a lot of solar is Pakistan. They may not even need a conventional electric grid much longer due to the how much individual solar there is in that in Pakistan. It's really gone crazy with it. So a Canadian community, 20 homes had solar panels who all had storage batteries. They're all networked together to become a virtual power plant. The network will include 100 new high-efficiency homes that combined will be able to store 2 megawatt hours of electricity. Now, in the greater scheme of things, 2 megawatts isn't huge. We were talking about gigawatts earlier and all that. Still, the proponents of virtual power plants told the Canadian Broadcasting Company that virtual power plants make it possible to add more wind and solar by filling the gaps when it's not windy or sunny. They also help stabilize the grid by matching electricity supply with demand and reduce or defer the need to spend money on building physical power plants and other electricity infrastructure. That means lower costs for utility companies and ratepayers. The residential batteries they used are supplied by Germany's Sonnen, Sonnen, which also made the software for the project. So what the idea here is, all of these homes are helping to stabilize the grid. Now, you start being able to, at a certain point, depending on what part of the country or where you're at, you may be able to arbitrage the electrical tariffs.
Right.
So you may be able to buy electricity when it's cheap or get it from your solar and then sell it back to the utility at a cheap price. Okay. Yeah. But still, you might be able to sell it to the grid at peak times when the grid is willing to pay more for it because they're selling it for more money.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting way to see how this is coming. And this is definitely going to be the future, because people are, like I said, people are always talking about, the grid can't handle EVs. Well, if everybody had EVs and they had vehicle to grid and they're plugged in, so peak times are generally between 5 and 9 p.m. Okay. So if people come home and they plug their car in, but they don't use it to charge, with the idea of charging the car between midnight and 7 a.m., when wind is really cheap or wind is plentiful and energy usage is low, air conditioning usage is low at night, people aren't watching TV, they're not cooking. There's all these things they're not doing. They're not running the washer and dryer. They're not doing laundry, whatever. So what happens is it balances all this out. And like I said before, the really tough time for energy is when the air conditioner is being used the most.
Yeah.
So, and if you're talking, let's say we're talking California. California has an overabundance of solar. And so they actually export solar to neighboring states because they can't use it fast enough when it's when in the middle of the day. Anyways, I just realized we've actually gone on for a whole hour today, Bobby. I did not realize we had so much to cover. And for folks that stuck in there, I want to thank y'all for watching today. I don't know the status of tomorrow and maybe next week before I do another show due to some possible travel arrangements I have to make. Anyways, Bobby, I want to thank you for coming in for Bill today. And otherwise, folks, you'll get a notification if we're on. So appreciate y'all watching, and we'll be back soon.